Now, the Halo games are some of my favorite games of all time. The original trilogy. Now, to say that Halo has religion in it, that's sort of like saying that Zelda has swords in it. Yeah, it definitely has swords. A master sword. Before we get into why religion is in Halo, let's get into some examples. Now, the Covenant. That's really easy. A covenant is basically a promise between two people. It was used in the Torah, in the Old Testament for Christians. It's actually used in the Quran several times too. The flood. Most religions have a flood narrative. This is something pretty standard. The one that's most commonly referred to, however, is Noah's Ark. Now, the story of Noah involved a man, he was called by God to build an ark and save his family and repopulate the earth after God destroyed it in a massive flood. The flood represented judgment on mankind. It was a worldwide catastrophe, destroying all life on earth and rebuilding afterwards. That was the idea, almost like a baptism. So the flood in Halo is an organism. But what it does is it takes over other organisms, kills them, and sort of reanimates them as it. It's very interesting. Along those same lines, the Ark in Halo was a structure built by the Forerunners, and I'm not exactly sure what the structure did. It wasn't really well explained. Maybe it did the same thing as the Ark in the story, I don't know. But the Ark in Noah's Ark was basically a refuge, a place where you could hide and be protected from judgment. I watched that group of Halo animations. I think it was called Halo Legends. It was pretty sweet, actually. There was a part in it where they talked about the Forerunners, and they showed the destruction to destroy the flood, and what happened was they ended up saving some species. Now, whether they were saved in the Ark or not, I'm not sure, but that seems to be what they're saying. The Arbiter. The Arbiter is a very fascinating character to me because they built him up as the commander of the forces at the Halo ring in the first game. Then in Halo 2, he's dishonored because of his failure to defeat the Master Chief.
You are one of our most treasured instruments. Long have you led your fleet with honor and distinction, but your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
Nay, it was heresy.
An arbiter is someone who settles disputes. In religion, it's like a judge or a prophet who will do that. The Halo ring itself, this is a difficult one to explain. It isn't so much a symbol that's religious, but the term that's used for it. In the case of the Covenant, they were called the Covenant because they all came to an agreement and they all were together in their religion, that's the Covenant. The Halo ring is simply called Halo. So you mean the thing, the little halo ring above a person's head when they die, like in a cartoon? That's a halo? No, not really. What a halo is an artistic representation of holiness, or the Holy Spirit in Catholicism. You can see this in a lot of Catholic icons early on. They'll have a depiction of a saint, and it'll have a halo around that person's head. They did this with Jesus. They did this with, I think, several saints. Angels, I believe, had halos as well. And I think that's where that comes from, in the cartoons, where the angel has a little ring above their head, or whatever. But this came to be a halo. That's what a halo is. So why did they use religion? Why did they use religious imagery and terminology in Halo then? World building. If you think about it, the Halo world has to build a vast history. It has to have a tone to it and everything within 15 minutes of the first game. You have to know where this game is going. You have to know what kind of game you're playing. Halo was unique in that it had this sort of reverent feel to it, this almost space opera vibe to it, and you don't see that in a lot of games. Mass Effect did a good job of that in the first game. The other two, like the second was basically Ocean's 11, and the third was basically Deus Ex: Human Revolution. But calling a device Halo and an alien race the Covenant was an artistic choice in Bungie's case. They chose to do that because they wanted to set a tone of religion and military struggle. Religion and military. Is there a case in the modern day where religious extremists are at odds with the military power at the time? No, I can't think of any at the top of my head. Global war on terrorism. In fact, if you think about it, the grunts sometimes acted as suicide bombers. The elites would sometimes mutter religious phrases, for the great journey or whatever, before dying. Yeah, you can make the case that Bungie was using the global war on terrorism. I guess this was to easily overlay the religious imagery they wanted to use, and use the military as well. It's interesting. Does it make Halo disrespectful? No, I don't think so. Often, great tales of fiction will use religious imagery or attitudes of the time to refer to historical events. The best example I can think of is The Crucible by Arthur Miller. The Crucible is a story of the Salem witch trials, but it was written in a time of McCarthyism. That is, people were accused of being communist and they were arrested as traitors or investigated or blacklisted. So he was making a statement using period examples. Bungie was simply using something for tone and story, and that's fine. It's really semiotics when you think about it. Really spoken a lot by James Paul G. if you're interested in his book, What Video Games Have to Teach Us About Learning and Literacy. Semiotics is using symbols, signs, relating something associated with something you're talking about. In Bungie's case, they're able to use this to associate these reverent images and these images of religion to give you this tone of this game and how it's going to be. Today, many Halo fans revere the first trilogy, considering one of the greatest trilogies in video games ever made. Yeah, I tend to agree. Maybe not the greatest. I don't know any other trilogies. Maybe Mario 1, 2, and 3. I don't know. But I think that's part of the religious imagery's effect. This reverence that people have towards the game is because you have this reverence towards religious imagery, perhaps. I don't know. It'd be an interesting study to take part of. Well, that's religion in Halo. Hope you enjoyed it. Not really as thorough as I wanted it to be, but that's the way it works out. I mean, Bungie used it for a specific purpose. And I really do think the global war on terrorism has some effect on the storytelling in Halo. I don't know. It's interesting. Thanks for watching.